So of course we're running with the Tesla Model 3 2023 edition. It's a cool car. It's a good time. Everything is going to be an experience, and we're going to see what we can make of it. Of course, it's your typical Tesla, but we're having a good time here nonetheless. And we're going to take some traveling, some trips, and use some self-driving once again. And I'll make a few comments about it. It's a good time in this vehicle. If I had to describe a feeling that you get with the electric motor, it's that it feels like you're always in boost. Always. Like you're in all of the boost. Because technically you are. And energy demand is instant, short of how it's programmed to ramp power in, but the ramp is pretty much damn near immediate. Of course, it's not unmanaged. It's definitely managed. But it's just that torque, that feeling. I don't need the noise. I don't need the noise and the blah, 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 blah. I love it, but I don't need it to enjoy the torque and going fast and whipping somebody's ass on the street at the end of the day. So that's how I feel about that. If you can get the torque, if I can get the win, the W, then I'm winning by default. The acceleration is phenomenal. The acceleration feels wonderful. And I can navigate any traffic that I need to with just a simple push of the pedal. Just ever so slightly, just the slightest demand gives me exactly what I need, and you can pass these scrubs with just impunity, like at that point. It's very easy. You can get around the BS, you can get around the crappy driving, you can do what you gotta do, of course. Be safe, follow the laws, whatever, do what you gotta do. But just that immediate response that you're able to get from the vehicle is absolutely wonderful. The torque feels wonderful. The car feels refined. Everything on the road, you don't feel the bumps nearly as much. It's not the peak luxury, of course. It's not a luxury vehicle. It is just a straight 23 Model 3, so it's a new car. The self-driving is pretty decent. It has some things that just need to be tweaked, of course, as it learns more things across the spectrum from all drivers and cars. I hope my data's been very valuable. I've pushed this thing to various miles over the course of a short few days in various climates, situations, circumstances, in a mixture of tests that you could basically just use as good data that most people out there probably don't provide on a constant basis. So if I can get that portion of the vehicle to continue to be developed, that would be perfect. And Tesla's always going to develop this portion of the vehicle because they have the largest data pool in the world when it comes to any electric vehicles driving or driver and user habits. So you're basically getting like the plug out of this, you know, and that's my pun for the day on that. So it's good to note, if you're in a cold condition, if you're in a cold climate, that the regenerative braking is going to be a little less, especially if your battery's fully charged and it's cold. You're not going to have as much self-braking, but feathering the throttle is something that you get used to. When you release the gas pedal, it actually does apply the brake lights. So, and of course we're saying, you know, gas pedal, we call it electric pedal, I guess, at this point, or go pedal. So when you hit it, it does change how much torque you're applying from your motor. And when you release, as you see, go into the green area. When you ease into it, it goes into the white, as you can see on the screen there. And that gives you, like right now we're in engine braking. I'm not on the gas at all, or so to speak, the gas pedal. We're gonna have to get used to that part, you know. It's not a gas pedal. It is a torque request pedal, if you will. That's what I'm gonna call it. But the acceleration is very stout. The acceleration is pretty good if I wide open throttle, so to speak. It is very, very good at what it does. And the torque is there when you need it. Right now I've got a range of 211 miles. It's cold, and I'm gonna go get some ice cream. That's what I'm gonna do. That seems reasonable. Anyhow, that is one aspect among many of the vehicle. Software updates can be done online. There is also the standard on here as well for looking at your charging profile and how much miles you're utilizing as you drive the vehicle, as far as consumption. So I aired the tires up because it requested that I air the tires up, and you can see that under your general services menu. You can see what the PSI of your tires are. PSI has come down a bit due to the temperature, and I filled up when it was driving, and that applies the same. Tire inflation is going to go down when it's cold. Tire inflation is going to go up when you have more heat in the tires. So the recommended PSI is 42 PSI per tire. I set them to 43 because I knew I would have to compensate for this change in temperature. So the PSI on the tires is a lot better than it was. It was at like 37 a pop. So this is better in general. And we're just going to get on the interstate. As you can see, if I turn the signal on, it detects the vehicles around me. So it's just letting me know, hey, you can't turn in that lane, you got a vehicle there. And that just came in on the latest general update, which is also an update to full self-driving as well. If I enable that, it will definitely say, hey, pay attention to the road, and now the car is driving itself. You still have to keep pressure on the steering wheel, and you still have to manage like exactly what you're doing. You can't just like not pay attention. There is a camera up here at the top that actually watches what you're doing. So that camera is, of course, utilizing the computer to see if the driver's eyes are on the road. And that's basically what it does. I don't really have much more to expound on that, actually. If you have your menus up here and you're looking at everything about the vehicle, you can just swipe away. And as you see, the car is driving itself right now. I have no hands on the wheel, and I'm allowing it to do its thing, but it's going to ask for some pressure on the wheel, which just a little jar, enough to have the sensor detect your input, is all you need to keep it. And you also need to be paying attention and looking forward. Of course, I'm recording, but I'm not distracting my attention from the road. My attention is still on the road. So it works out nonetheless. I think it's a cool vehicle. It's neat to do some evaluations, see how these vehicles run. Of course, an electric motor is superior to a combustion engine, so you have to understand that aspect. I think the battery range and life could be better, of course, but it actually is pretty decent. When I make different hops, when I make hops from place to place, I've been able to get to a supercharger. I got to one supercharger, and the guy, I don't know, he had run over the entire supercharger, so they were towing that vehicle out of there. Rest in peace to that Tesla. It's probably definitely totaled, or his bill's gonna at least be like a good 30 grand. Charging is simple. Bam, open your door, pull your cord, and plug in. The car is at the supercharger, and it's now charging. So see, we didn't get rid of superchargers. We didn't get rid of superchargers at all. We're still using them. Says I've got 35 minutes on this setup. I'm going to go to 100% if I can, or at least float it. We'll see how well this works out for the amount of range that I need to get where I need to go. There's some gripes that I have about the features of autopilot at this point, which is mostly because of people sleeping and doing other crazy things. That Tesla locked the autopilot down greatly to the point that you really can't do a lot of cool stuff with it in that aspect, but mostly because it's a safety issue, and some of the full self-driving is not squared away. It has its quirks. It has a lot of quirks, especially around the guardrails and the construction zones of Texas. There's a lot of aspects that are great about it. It does good on the lane changes. It does good in the lanes. It does good with traffic around the vehicle. I'm able to detect when cars are around, and it's a well-featured vehicle. It's well made. I haven't seen any real issues on this. People mentioned something about body gaps and like gaps in panels. I didn't see anything that's different than any other vehicle when it comes to body lines. Every vehicle has gaps. Here's this F-150. I mean, you can see the gaps on the camera. So those things are normal, just as they are with this vehicle. And of course, as with any, they have their quirks. The charging has been pretty decent. Charging, man, I mean, on a good trip, it charges up in about 10 minutes from like 30%, 15 at the worst. I go ahead and I do full charges just because full charges are important. And that gives me, maybe 30 minutes on the charger total, which isn't too bad, especially depending on the location. So it just gives enjoyment nonetheless for the vehicle and the experience. The long range would have been a lot better to have, because what are we on percentage-wise? 87%, which isn't horrible. I'm driving somewhat conservatively, make sure I last on battery. And that's one gripe that I do have about the vehicle only, is that if you're going to do spirited driving, you're going to lose battery life quickly, at least in the standard range. So you have to be very meticulous about how you spare your battery range in your life, and you also have to get away from that feeling of range anxiety based on the percentage of battery you have left. So if I show up at a station, the autopilot system, the navigation system, will actually get me in a range where it's like, hey, you're gonna have 15% battery left when you get to this charging location. If it feels like I'm not gonna make it to a location, then it goes ahead and it changes it up, and it tells me, hey, you're not gonna make it, I'm gonna divert you to this charging station and then continue you on your route. So one thing I absolutely love about the ride in the Tesla Model 3, this is a single motor, is if you demand really hard, it's a wide open throttle, so to speak, full accelerator pedal. Yeah, that's what we're gonna call it from now on. If you go FAP. If you go full accelerator pedal, you can hear the current in the circuits. You can hear that whine, that very high pitched whine that you're pulling amps because you're just pushing the car in that aspect and demanding power, literal power, electricity. You can hear it just slightly, and I love that sound. It's very subtle, it's very quiet. It's not the rumble of some long tubes and a V8 or V12 or V10 if it has that dual overhead cam V10. But it's honestly an exciting feeling as well, because you're getting all the torque, you're getting the power delivery immediately, and it's just something that, quite frankly, you can enjoy. Like, you can enjoy every bit of it because you're putting the power to the ground. You're not having to downshift, you're not having to change gears or do any of that nonsense. You just apply power, you go FAP, and then you go fast, and there it is. It's lovely. It's wonderful. Overall, in the vehicle, like I said, experience is great. The vehicle's well made in the inside. Love the heated steering, love the heated seats, love the climate control system. My only gripe is the mostly lack of buttons. There are some buttons. Buttons exist, but they're not many. There's like all of maybe 6 of them, and they're mostly multifunction buttons. The icons could be a little bit better and a little bit more definitive for driving, especially in rough conditions. I noted that the frunk, which is the front trunk, got a little water in it, and that was during a very, very heavy Louisiana-style rainstorm. I don't know that that's normal. This vehicle had 15,000 miles when I took it off the lot, so I'm evaluating that, and just how the vehicle accelerates, how it runs in traffic, the regenerative braking, that wasn't too bad. Regenerative braking was easy to get used to, and I was able to make changes to how severe the braking is. I was also able to change the steering between normal and sport mode to get a different feel. I like the cool mode best. The sport mode was a little heavy and felt a little more laborious than I really needed to. Maybe some more customizability there would be cool. Given that this is a 2023, is the latest model before the 24, and the vehicle has done well. It seems like on a battery for this standard range on the highway, I'm looking at about 200 miles. Now, that's not including the fact that I'm got some spirited driving in there, I've got some send it, I've got some flexing for the torque, everything else. So overall, I'm satisfied. So we had quite a bit of travel time, as you can see, lots of trips, got all the way to 1,200 miles, and decent amount of energy, 356 kilowatts used, total 280 watts per mile. So a little more spicy than normal for battery life, but that's pretty decent given that we were in like a full send it mode. So I don't mind that at all. It's been a great Tesla. And of course, Mystery 85 is going to move on to the next vehicles, of course, and continue bringing the content that we always have. You guys stay tuned.